I'm going to talk about two kind of moves today. And one is the pin move and one is the fork. This one is called the pin move. The reason why it's called a pin move is this. If you notice, right here I have a rook. And that rook could attack this knight. However, on the other side of that knight is a king. So if you attack the king, because the knight is there, he's not attacking the king. So the knight is essentially blocking him from attacking the king. So that's called a pin, because right now the knight can't actually move. If you tried to move the knight, it would cause problems. Like if you wanted to move the knight here, you couldn't actually move him there. Like the computer won't allow me to move it because it automatically creates a check for the king. It puts the king in danger and he's going to be captured. So because of that, you can't actually do that. So this knight is what we call pinned. What is the best move for white right now since black is pinned? Well, one good move is a lot of good moves. You can set up other moves and so forth. But good chess players are going to try to pin you, or they're going to try to fork you. And if you get a chance to pin someone, you're probably going to do something like, if I move this pawn up, now he's attacking the knight as a weaker piece. Like if this pawn wanted to, on his next move, he could capture this knight. And he's probably going to be captured back by this pawn or by this bishop, but he's not going to lose much. It's not like, it's not much to worry about there. It's a good trade for white. The trade is white pawn for this black knight. So that's a pin. Let me give you another example of a pin. All right, so this is a new board, and there's a pin on this board right now. So an experienced player probably can see the pin right away. But right now, take a minute, I'll give you about 30 seconds to look at the board and see if you see where the pin is. Right now, it's black's move. So take a look at the board and see if you see a pin. All right, so that was about 15 seconds, but you may have already saw the pin, and if you did, this is where the pin lies. Right now, this bishop is attacking the knight, and if the knight moves, the bishop could capture the queen. Now, this makes it different from the previous move where we pinned the king, pinned the knight in front of the king because the knight couldn't legally move if it was in front of the king. However, the knight could legally move here. You know, it could move someplace else. And it'd be a bad move though, because if he did move, the white bishop would have a clear shot to the queen here. So he probably wouldn't do that. Unless for some reason he saw a very strong move. So the pins don't have to be a king, even though it's great if you are pinning a piece in front of a king. But in this case, we're pinning the knight to the queen, in hopes that the person probably wouldn't jeopardize losing his queen. However, if black saw this, if he could move down to here, he could now put the king in check. So now, even though that's a pin, that was a pin, and he was pinning it to the queen, you don't have to not get your queen captured. I mean, you could legally get your queen captured, and that's perfectly okay. So he could leave his queen there to be captured or hung or whatever. But coming here saying check, that forces white to have to deal with this check. So even though he has the queen, or I thought he had the queen, now he doesn't have to. I mean, at this point, he has to defend himself from check. So either he has to run with the king, or he has to attack the knight that's causing the check. Whatever the case may be, his rook is in jeopardy. So for example, his strongest move at this point could be, he could take this pawn and attack the knight, and that's fine and good, and that's great. If he did, most likely the queen would come down and end the game for him. Like if he did this, most likely the queen would come down and take his bishop. It wouldn't end the game, but it definitely cause problems for him if the queen came down in that kind of position. However, if he thought about doing a better move, if white thought about doing the strongest move, it would probably take his queen and come up for defense. Because if he did that, he probably wouldn't come down here and do that and have queen against queen unless he has some kind of wish to trade queens, which Some people do. I mean, it happens. But I would generally try to avoid it because I like to keep my queen on the board. So anyway, that's an example of a pin and how the pin could actually lead to other things happening that you might not expect it, like the knight coming down, and instead of staying there in the pin, the knight coming down and causing a check, which could cause a lot of problems. So anyway, that's a pin. Okay, here's one last pin, and in this case, pause the video, take a look at it. It's white's move, and take a look at the board and see if you see a potential pin. If white moves a piece and creates a pin, take a look at the board and see if you can see where white can move a piece to create a pin. So I'm going to pause for about 15 seconds to see if you notice that. I'm going to give you a tip. It may involve a knight. So anyway, take 15 seconds to see where white can move a piece to create a pin. Okay, so that's time. All right, so you might not have saw it yet, but this is the piece that could create the pin. Had I taken my knight and I moved the knight, say here, check. It actually might be checkmate, because the pin that's created is, ordinarily I wouldn't move there because this pawn could take my knight. I just lost a knight for a pawn, and that's a horrible trade. However, if you notice here, I have a queen there, and that queen is in direct line with the king. So if I move, if he actually moved this pawn, if he actually took my knight with the pawn, it's actually an illegal move. He actually couldn't do it. Like the computer won't let him do it, and the person he's playing won't let him do it, because the king here, would capture the queen here, would capture the king right away. So he couldn't actually do that. So this is a pin. He's pinning the pawn with the knight. Oh, I'm sorry, he's pinning the pawn with the queen, and he's also checkmating the king because the king has no way of getting out. He can't capture him with this piece, and he can't run away because he's blocked in by his own pieces. So that's actually a checkmate created with the pin. So anyway, so typically you want to look for ways of getting out of a pin, like taking the guy who's creating the pin and so forth, or creating some kind of a check against the other guy. But in this case, it's checkmate. He can't actually create a check like he did in the last situation to get out of the pin, or actually attack the guy who's creating the pin to get out of the pin. So anyway, that's what a pin looks like, and those are ways that good players would create pins. I'll give you one last one. Okay, so right now, take a look at the board. It's white's turn, and decide where the pin is. All right, so look at the board, take 15 seconds, see if you can find the pin. I'll give you a tip. It involves, no, I won't give you a tip. See if you can find the pin, 15 seconds. All right, so that's the 15 seconds. If you notice that you had a rook here that's attacking, that's pinning this bishop to the rook that's behind it. So in a sense, this is a more powerful piece, so you probably wouldn't want to lose your rook. So this bishop is kind of pinned. So basically, what you want to do is you want to attack the pinned piece. Whenever you create a pin or you see a pin, if it's your move, you want to attack the pinned piece because he can't do anything. Or you probably wouldn't do anything because he probably would put his piece in jeopardy or whatever. So a good attack on the pinned piece would be something like this. All right, so let me get rid of this extra arrow I put. And now I'm attacking the bishop, and the bishop probably wouldn't attack me back because that would be opening up a situation where I can easily take his knight. Like the bishop could take my bishop back, but he probably wouldn't because he probably wouldn't want for me to come down and take his bishop. So he probably stay there. Unless he felt like he had a strong position there. But that's another example of a pen. All right, so enough about pens. Last thing is fork. So we explain forks now. All right, so the next move is called a fork move. And a fork move is basically a move that attacks more than one piece at a time. You can do it with knights, you can do it with pawns, and you can do it with other pieces, queens, bishops, and so forth. But it's basically an attack on two pieces at once. Some people might call a fork move a double attack. So this is one very basic example of a double attack. If I move my knight here, my white knight here, it's attacking the queen and it's attacking the king. I'm sorry, the bishop. Not bishop, rook. It's attacking the queen and it's attacking the rook. Now, this is pretty weak fork because he doesn't have any backup. He doesn't have any pieces protecting him. It would have been stronger had he had somebody back here that would prevent the king from just simply taking him on the next move. So generally, whenever you want to create a fork, you want to have some backup. You want to have somebody there protecting that knight if he's getting way down here in this place. But this is an example of a fork because his knight is attacking two pieces at once. It's just not very strong because he doesn't have any backup, anyone reassuring that the king won't just simply take him just because he got that close. Because king could just do this. And he has no reason why he wouldn't do that. Anyway, so that's one example of a fork. That's a fork with a knight. All right, really, I think I've gone long enough, so I'm going to stop right there. And I'm going to pause because I think this video is going on for 11.5 minutes, and that's enough time. So that's all I have. Good luck.